Man and a dog were stranded at sea for 3 days and 3 nights when they finally drifted down the current to a deserted island. The boy set up the canoe as a shelter and began to take stock of what he had left. A box of matches, some fishing line and hooks, and a box of baked cookies. Mark's first choice was to go fishing on the beach, and luckily it wasn't long before he caught a big fish. The first day of being stranded on a deserted island, Mark didn't feel too bad about having hot food. The next morning he took the dog to the sea and dug up some clams. Mark also used fishing line to mend a pair of waterproof shoe covers and played games with the dog on the beach. He and his dad were lost in a storm at sea, and he thought that if he waited here for a few days, the rescue team would find him. But after 5 days of waiting, Mark didn't wait for a rescue plane. He smashed the stakes he'd made and piled the wood on top of each other to light a bonfire to signal when a plane would fly over. That day he was sleeping when he heard the sound of an airplane outside. So he got up and ran to the campfire and took out the softwood he had prepared. But he tried several times to light the fire without success. By the time the fire started, he could no longer hear the sound of the airplane, and Mark did not wait for the airplane to fly over again until the fire was extinguished. He wrote his name on the oars and the direction he was going, counted his supplies, and left. After 9 days of waiting with no luck, Mark decided to take the initiative and went out with his dog to a canyon where the waves were too rough to continue, so they had to go back and find another way out. Just then a rescue plane flew over their heads again. Mark was so excited that he called out for help, but the canyon they were in blocked their position. He watched the plane leave but could not do anything about it. Mark sat on the beach and cried. Even though he was strong, he was only a teenager, stranded on a deserted island for so many days. He was lucky to have his dog to keep him company. At night it rained heavily and Mark huddled in his simple shelter. The sound of wolves howling outside made him unable to sleep. Suddenly, the dog started barking furiously, and a hungry wolf stared at them from outside. But the dog didn't seem to have the slightest bit of fear, and chased the wolf out of the house. Unexpectedly, it was just a ploy by the wolves, and another wolf appeared in front of Mark, bearing its ferocious fangs, and he ran away. Mark saw the situation is not good and quickly ran away. The dog rushed up a few rounds to chase away the bad wolf, so that Mark escaped from death. The next day, Mark set up the trap and fell asleep, leaving the dog to keep a close eye on him. Seeing the prey appeared, the dog was also very excited and woke up Mark. But this time they were lucky to finally be able to replenish a little bit of energy. The dog looked at the meat but did not show a trace of urgency until Mark shared a small piece of it, and then they both greedily enjoyed the hard-earned food. Meanwhile, on the other side, Mark's father and the rescue team finally found the place where Mark had first stopped, and saw the words left behind. His father was much relieved, at least for the time being. They could be sure that his son was still alive. All they had to do was to follow Mark's directions to find him, but it's not easy to find a moving human being in the dense vegetation of the islands. Mark's sight is no better, because he can't find anything to eat. He decides to use his emergency supplies,